Daryl Powell's head.
Can't find Daryl Powell's head. Where's Daryl Powell's head?
Probably not a bad thing.
It's not going well, this, is it?
No, it isn't going well. But that's to be expected. I think that's what we have all the time
now. This is the new norm.
This is rubbish. It's not rubbish. It's 4020. We're supposed to be live, but he's not live. He's not live again. 1 week we managed to do it live, and then it's fallen apart. But I blame the software and the person running it. Phil Kaplan is here. Fire Athletics #1 fan, apparently.
Well, it was to remind me to thank Alex for sending the Fire Athletic face mask. Because I think we mentioned it on the show once that everybody has a favourite team in the Scottish leagues, and yours is Dumbarton.
Dumbarton, yes.
Paul's is Hamilton.
Sterling.
He's
Sterling. Yeah. It was 1 year they were the worst team in Britain, so I adopted them for that reason.
And I like Fire because of their Sabutio colours when I was a kid, so I now have their matching face masks. Thank you, Alex.
It would be the Meadowbank Thistle of Rugby League, probably Springfield Borough, but we'll talk about failed clubs later because we've got that failed to talk about. Paul Bennett is here, Phil is here as well. Let's get into the meat of the situation and the two veg, in fact, because what's going on? I mean, I'm trying to go onto the Rugby League website to check if everyone's been banned yet, but what is going on with everyone? What's happened?
I have no idea. What's going through their minds? I just don't know. I really don't know. Is it some sort of like low level Rugby League player bans or something? I don't get it.
I think it's got something to do with lockdown, that people have been missing out on things, clearly. Tony Smith said something interesting in his press conference this morning, previewing the games at the weekend, that clearly he has a player up for said offence at the moment. Looks like Jordan Abdul won't be playing for a little while, perhaps. And he said things have always gone on where tackles in areas they shouldn't be are part and parcel of the game. But because Tommy Makinson's was so up front and replayed, I'm trying to think of the words to use that aren't going to cause a Twitter storm. His tackle technique was less than what would have been desired. That now people are looking for it and making more of it than what it is. But I think he used the word mistimed. Misplaced might have been better.
I think that's nonsense, personally. I mean, it's all right. I think after the game, immediately after the game, he argued that it was a bit of a mistake, right? So that's fair enough. I can accept that. But then to say that, it's always gone on in the game and therefore it's part and parcel of the sport, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like if it has always gone on in the game, stop it now. It's ridiculous.
Is that like he's not that kind of player thing? When someone hits someone on the head and he's not that kind of player, but he hit him on the head. I just don't understand why. If it has been going on for so long, why haven't players complained about it before? Why is it only now when all the games are on telly that we're noticing it? Or is it just we're not noticing it because it's on telly? It's just a sudden spate of these things.
Well, there might well be a sort of code of silence of, what goes on in the pitch. You don't make a complaint about your fellow professional, but obviously you can't escape it now because we can all see it. The cameras pick it up. So there's no escape from it. But all these players have been used to cameras being on them throughout their careers. So it's not as if that's new to them. So I'm completely puzzled by it all.
What about wearing a box? Do you think that's going to become the norm? Like cricket?
A pizza box. An old Papa John's box just laying around. We could use that.
Potential sponsorship opportunities, which is we should be encouraging more of, I suppose.
It does seem to be just. I know these things happen in the rough and tumble of rugby league. We know players miss time tackles and you get high shots and are completely accidental. But it just seems odd that all these things are coming at once, and it's an
again. Be very careful what phrase you use there.
Yeah, it's easy for us to talk about it and take the mickey out of it because it's it's an amusing body part, isn't it? It's like these bits. But Why do they do it? Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, we're having a laugh about it, and like you say, Richard, but it is very serious.
Yeah.
we do the old cliche is if you did that to somebody in the street, you'd go to prison. If you did that to somebody in the street, you'd register. Right, so it's a serious matter. Obviously, we're having a joke about it as part of the show, but it's serious and it should be clamped out. Ban them all.
I get the idea of accidental collision when you're trying to pull someone down around their waist area. But clearly, when you know it's being looked for at the moment and it's a hot topic, you've just got to be careful. You know, clearly it is going to be picked up. The cameras are, I would imagine, not looking for things, but clearly if there is a sense that there might be an issue there, they're going to extenuate it a little bit. But yeah, 3 in as many weeks. Who would have thought it?
It's not as if Sky have suddenly got more cameras on the game either, is it? It's the same number of cameras we've already had for years. So
insane. They're just copying each other, maybe.
Yeah.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Tony called for common sense. What is common sense? What is a fair ban for ungentlemanly conduct, do you think?
Well, clearly 5 matches is not enough because bans are supposed to be, to set a precedent to deter people from doing the same offence, and yet it's happened twice straight away. So clearly 5 matches isn't enough. I mean, what, 8 games you could get for grade F? Is it? I think that's fair.
But
worse than a crusher tackle.
I think what this comes down to me is that I think you can accidentally be guilty of a crusher tackle, and at least crusher tackles are you are doing an act that belongs in rugby league. You are making a tackle. You're trying to stop your opponent. Now, clearly, you have to take more care with your opponent these days, and absolutely, we should be encouraging that. But you don't accidentally grab somebody by the privates and squeeze them. Then you can accidentally touch them. That's going to happen all the time, I'm sure. But to do the squirrel grip, as it's called, you don't do that accidentally. You're not doing anything that's part of rugby league. It's not like an accidental high shot because you've gone for a tackle, you've got it wrong. This is something you've chosen to do. And so
gamesmanship, or far more serious than that?
I think it's more serious than that. I mean, it depends how hard you do it, I suppose, doesn't it? Ultimately, because you can cause serious damage, So yeah, I we're all having a laugh about it. I don't like it at all. I think it needs to be stamped out.
And it is one of those things which is easily picked up by everyone's favourite phrase, the mainstream media, to have a report on, and understandably so, because we're talking about it here because it is vaguely amusing, and they will see it as that as well. And although I guess he's having our players in the papers for the right reasons or the wrong reasons any different. I don't know. We need to talk about players and their profiles later. Common sense in rugby league. As long as we haven't got anyone like Noel Gallagher in rugby league or Ian Brown, we'll be all right. One assumes. Maybe Tony should ask some of his colleagues at OKR about that.
Is Noel one of those as well now? Then.
Yeah, apparently.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
All of your heroes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, neither of those, to be fair, were really heroes for me. Morrissey's the tough one.
When I was in the old place at Radio Yorkshire, I was filling in on the afternoon programme, and I used to just interview random people. And one day I was offered a Morrissey in a Smith's tribute act, and I actually broached that subject with him, and he was like, "Yeah, I like his music, but his politics, no, leave that to one side." It's where do you separate the art from the artist?
Exactly. It's tough.
I have to say, I did like Tony Smith's comment about why he's keeping his beard at the moment, because it reminds him of lockdown, and that of all of the issues that are going on in the game at the moment, he says he looks in the mirror and realises that just to be coaching at all is what we should be focusing on at the moment, and seeing himself looking like that every day is the reminder of the harsh reality of what lockdown was. So I'm all for him keeping his beard now. Not that I know anything at all about keeping beards, clearly.
Do you remember lockdown? Do you remember that, kids? He does look like Mick Foley. I'm sure you'll agree.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I think it really works for him.
Everyone likes Tony Smith. And he's right. We should feel, I don't know if grateful is the right word or lucky. Probably lucky is the right one, because earlier today they've cancelled the next ice hockey season, which was due to start. Well, it starts around now, but they were going to start it in December. They've realised there's no way they can get it to be financially viable for a sport where I think the average attendance is 3,000, but some are a lot bigger and some are smaller. They can't work that sport with crowds being less than 75% capacity. I think that's what they said in their release today. So we should be lucky we're seeing any sport at all. I know it's not ideal. It's not the perfect situation. I've not been to a game where there's no one there yet. I've been watching on TV. It's not ideal, but at least we have our sport to follow, albeit at the top level at the moment.
I think that there's two other things there. One is clearly the EFL have put out a statement today saying the next 48 hours are crucial for the survival of some of their clubs. And, if we are going to compare ourselves to anyone at all, it perhaps would be maybe League Two, perhaps League One for our bigger clubs in football. So they're at the start of a season and are really struggling to keep going without crowds. More importantly, there should be no criticism this year. Every fan is entitled to bemoan and berate the performance of their team if they don't win, because if you can't do that as a fan, what's the point of being a fan? But you have to have extenuating circumstances. And we've said it a lot on this programme, I think all of us between us, that there has to be greater tolerance this year, that what people are being asked to do and the circumstances they're having to do it under just make it almost impossible to judge them. I still find it amazing that, clearly you've had a near normal NRL season, but it's the highest number of coaches have been dismissed in their 112-year history in one season. Is it 5 of them have gone this year out of the 16? We see it with all clubs that lose. Oh, that player's rubbish. This coach has got to go. He's been there too long. And just forget it. Forget it. If we can get through this season, points percentage is terrible and it's not fair and it depends who you've played. And no, if we can get to a season that has some degree of meaning attached to it, a minimum of 15 games, then let's go for it and take everything at the moment as a positive because we're there. I'm
convinced it's going to be Warrington's year, because if they win the title this year, everyone can say, well, it doesn't count. So you can have that, but we're not counting it. It's like people say Liverpool, no, you didn't really win the league, even though they'd won it months before they actually consider. No, there's no fans there. None of this counts. None of this counts.
It's harder. It's actually harder. You speak to players and coaches, and Wigan's Adrian Lamb has said today that one of the things that inspired them over in Perpignan this week was playing in front of a crowd. Now, clearly it was a hostile crowd, and it was great to hear them booing the referee, because that's what you're supposed to do as the home crowd. It was great to hear that they were singing Catalan ole 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 as their team ran out. And trying to intimidate the opposition. But Adrian Lamb said that actually that really fired up his own players, because they realised how privileged they were to be in a stadium where there were some fans. So, let's all have a sense of perspective this year. Please, everyone. You
mean like the letter in the paper blaming James Child for Wakefield losing to Hull last week?
Yeah, and I've even seen Castleford fans this week saying, has Daryl Powell been there too long and his team selection was wrong? And, just like, get a grip, people.
Not like that, though.
But not a Squrriel. Oh. Yes.
Yeah, I was surprised at the Power thing. I hadn't had any wind of that at all until I'd seen a tweet from Liam Watts, I think it was, basically backing him as you'd expect. And yeah, that completely puzzles me. Absolutely, I don't see that at all. I completely agree, Phil, with everything that you just said. To the point of Warrington, Richard, I wonder if Warrington fans, if you offered them now, this is the year you win the grand final, whether they actually want to win it or not. Like if they can't go, like would they want this to be the historic win, or would they actually just prefer to wait till they can be there?
What, another
That'd be
50 years?
interesting.
We'll ask the Warrington fans. We'll stick a poll out on Twitter. Would you, if this is your year, is that okay? They are level at the top, of course, on 72.73% with St Helens and Wigan. I assume that points difference is the splitter after. I didn't bother reading the press release because I wasn't bothered about the detail. Because A, we're just getting through the season, and B, of course, this is the best way. We said it last week, so of course we think it's a good idea. I don't understand the moaning. Catalans are 3 games behind. We saw Leeds play at the weekend. Was it 7 players taken out late?
Yeah, I think 3 who would have played and 4 who would have been in and around the squad. But I think the thing about that was the players who knew that they were waiting for the result of a test drove over to the ground themselves. They weren't on the team coach just in case it did come up as a positive. And the coach didn't know whether he was going to be able to select those 7 players, 3 who were earmarked to be in the team. So again, factor that into everything when you see how a team plays. And imagine that you cannot select your team until the hour before kickoff when you've got to put your team sheet in. It's virtually impossible circumstances to be working under, and that affects every single team. Sean O'Loughlin was supposed to be playing for Wigan this week, couldn't get on the plane because at the last minute, Track and Trace said he'd come into contact with somebody who may have needed a test. Well, I just have. How can you look at somebody like, for example, Mike Cooper, who played, was it 72 minutes when Warrington played Hull, and backed that up by playing 80 minutes, a very short time afterwards this week? You tell me that if they win the grand final, he's not entitled to his medal. I think whoever wins the competition this year will be as deserving as anybody who's ever won it because of what they've had to go through. So yeah, you don't want to do it without your fans there when you waited so long to celebrate it, absolutely clearly, but it's no less valued, I don't think.
Mentioned Daryl Powell, and he, after the game on Sunday, had plenty to say. If I'm clever enough, I'll edit it in here when people watch the show later.
You look at what October looks like. If you actually look at what October looks like and November looks like, then this is what is going to happen. And we asked for more subs, or some of the coaches did. Some of them decided it won't be an impact, but I'm telling you here and now, it is going to be an impact, and it's going to be really difficult for teams when you get to October and November. So if the coaches that complain that are saying we don't need more subs are in the Challenge Cup in October, then good luck with that, because that's going to be really difficult. And I'm thinking about the players, because I can remember what it was like. It was a long time ago, but I can remember what it was like to play the game. And playing sort of 6-7 games in a month is going to have a huge impact on players' bodies. And I think we've got a World Cup at the end of next year, and the off season and pre-season is going to be shortened. And I'm thinking about the players and the long-term health, and England winning the World Cup as well. I'm thinking about that. I'm saying there needs to be some careful consideration given.
He wasn't very happy giving one-word answers at the start to some fair questions. It wasn't as if the questions were, my level of terrible. I wasn't asking them. But he was obviously not happy because he's had to have his players back up, as Hull did as well, with 72 hours between games. I don't want to say rest because it's not rest really, is it? No time to heal. He's been knocked out of the Challenge Cup. We're in a season where, as he said, if you win more than one trophy, you perform miracles almost. And as he says, the games are going to come thick and fast. The later we go in the season, it's been back loaded for that, for when the crowds hopefully can come back. And as he said, we've got a World Cup next year. We've got a short pre-season, a short off-season. There does need to be more understanding, but people aren't. People they're acting as if this is a normal season. It's anything but.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's fans, though, right? As Phil said, it's part of the fun is to be able to moan about stuff. If they're serious about it, then yeah, I kind of worry. You just got to, take it for what it is at face value. We are trying to keep this sport alive right now, and anything that can get us through to the end of the season as almost a placeholder to get to next year. We have to accept that, and you have to accept that the standards of your team aren't necessarily going to be at the level that you would expect normally, especially when they've got to play 2 games within 72 hours, as you know, in Castleford's and Hull's case. So yeah, I think we've all got to be a little bit more forgiving. I guess there's a mechanism with the points percentage. If we get to a point whereby we think for player welfare reasons we might have to shorten the season a little bit more, we can do that now. Perhaps, I don't know, maybe you have to consult the coaches on this one. I suppose we have our obligations to Sky. It's a difficult issue to resolve to make everyone happy. But listen, the players, the coaches also, like the fans, have to take it on the chin and have to accept some things aren't going to be ideal.
I mean, what was interesting, Phil, and I just remember this while Paul was talking about players and coaches. Powell was saying after the game, they'd been asked if they wanted more players on the bench. Some coaches said yes, some said no. Obviously, the majority must have said no, because we haven't got more players on the bench. Is that something... There's no reason now not to change rules as we go through this season, because it is what it is. So should we just say, right, as of the next round of Super League, when that starts next weekend, you can have an extra 1-2 play. The full 21-man squad, and it's a shame for Huddersfield because they ain't got any players or whatever, but the full 21-man squad you name, they can all be on the pitch and on the bench ready to play if needed.
Yeah, I think that there are two things about what Daryl was saying. The first thing is, clearly there is a player welfare issue, because if every team is struggling to the extent that they are at the moment, and his has been the first team along with Hull that have had to do the equivalent of a midweek fixture, this is only going to get worse. And I've got, you got to have immense sympathy for them over Squrriel Feki. I mean, they waited months to get him on there, and he lasts 24 minutes. And again, as a coach who's struggling to put your match day 17 together, the one thing you sort of do bank on is that your winger's going to stay on. You've got to be pretty unfortunate. I think he's also very frustrated with the way that his team is playing at the moment, because they're not hitting their potential, and clearly that would affect an immediate post-match interview. But as you say, the other issue he brought up was the one of interchanges, and interestingly, and clearly I defer to Paul, who actually follows football, but there was a change in the Premiership, wasn't there? When they finished off the season, they had extra players on the bench that they could call on. They had an ability to have more breaks in the game. They had the opportunity to make substitutions at certain times, but that was only ever done for this interim 9 or 10 games that they had to get through to get to the end of the season. We may need to do the same. We may need to say, look, everybody's got roughly 9 or 10 games left, because not every one of the games that have currently been postponed will be replayed, which is one of the reasons why we've gone to percentages. Maybe the number of interchanges in a game doesn't change, but the ability to use more players and spread that load and put somebody on from your 21-man squad who is more positionally attuned to the people you're actually losing. So if you've got, 2 hookers on your bench and one of your hookers who started the game goes down, you can change your rotational policy to suit the circumstances of the game. Now, I think Daryl's got a real fair point in that, and nobody is going to be upset or annoyed. I think the other issue, again, is you don't want to see too many kids thrown in. It's a really fine line between giving them an opportunity and how great it is to see some of this emerging young talent, but you don't want to have to put it all on at the same time. And people, criticised the Leeds signing of Brett Ferries, and I thought in the game that he played this week, coming off the bench, was exactly what Leeds needed. He played extremely well. He was experienced. He knew the calls and the way that the team wanted to play. Probably was better to stick an experienced guy on at that stage in a game than a young kid who it might have harmed his progression. But to have that ability to choose among your 21 who you put on and have some extra latitude, that is the debate we should be having, particularly as we brought in the new rules long into this season start. We were a quarter of the way through this season when we changed the playing rules, and that has a massive impact on the recruitment you've already made. You can't do a lot about that. Australia were 2 games in, so there was a fair amount of latitude in changing that. a lot of the coaches didn't want that change to 6 again, and now you can see why.
What Phil says about not playing too many kids, I think he's right. Perhaps with the idea of an extended bench, maybe there's a way of saying, okay, you can have a substitutes bench of 8 players, but 4 of them have got to be academy players, or that you have some sort of quota. So you can't, if you're a stronger team like a Warrington or a St Helens, have your 20 top class players to go against poor old Huddersfield who've basically got nobody left. But if you say that this is a chance for academy players who have played under a certain amount of first team games, then that might be a way of getting them a bit of game time, bit of experience without going over the top, and also resting some of your key players. I don't know, that might be a terrible idea. I've just made it up right now. I'm giving it no thought whatsoever. But
you're on the RFL board then. I think the other thing about it is we need to look at HIAs, because although they don't count as substitutions unless a player can't come back, I think there should be this greater latitude with an extended bench, that if somebody goes off for an HIA, you can put someone on in their position. We don't have that at the moment. If it is your winger that's going off for 15 minutes to be tested, then it would be great, I think, for the shape of the team if there was someone on the bench who covered the wing and 3/4 positions, rather than you had to stick a hooker back out there, because that's all you've got left. So I think we do need to be cognizant of the fact that things, as they get even more hectic fixture-wise, are probably going to have to change with regards to interchange. And I'm glad Daryl's brought the subject up. I think for him, it's a shame that it's always a shame that you bring something up when you're talking on the back of a couple of defeats, because people seem to think, oh, there's a touch of sour grapes in there. But I don't think there is in this case. I think he's making an extremely valid point that we need to do something about to preserve the players. They are putting in some ridiculous shifts at the moment, and they're not getting the credit for it. And it's in every team. 60 odd tackles a game is becoming the norm with the 6 again rule, and that isn't a government policy that you can only be with 6 people again, apparently.
Unless you're ground shooting.
Yeah, indeed. I'd consider actually extending that beyond HIAs as well, to include any game-ending injury in the first half. I think you've got to give a limit on it in the first half, because obviously you can get to 60 minutes and then you've gone down with a groin injury that I've got to go off, get this fresh guy on for 20 minutes. But if you extended it to all injuries, within the first half, I think that would cover a situation like Fecky, where he hobbles off after 25 minutes and you're a man down, that you then can call on an additional sub. I think that would be pretty sensible at this stage.
I think the other thing to bear in mind is that we all love the sport. We'll watch it if it's played at 3 o'clock in the morning on the moon with 6 aliens watching it. Whatever it is, we're the wrong people to ask about the sport, because we passionately love it and care about it and want it to survive and be the best it can be. But I think if we're being honest, the more games you cram in at this time with lack of training and having come off a long break inadvertently, the standard, however you measure that, is going to fall. And I think, again, to the neutral viewers and to potential television broadcasters who might be just starting to negotiate about future contracts, to sponsors, be they in kind or otherwise, I think we've got to maintain the integrity of what is on the field. And I think the worry is that without bringing in these extra subs or allowance on interchange, whatever it might be, we are going to see some Easter Monday type games more often than we're not, and that doesn't do the sport any good. And again, none of that is the fault of the players.
We'll talk more about the games in a bit, just to get through all the other stuff. You just mentioned the broadcasting thing there. It's in the League Express on Monday. 2 tenders have been put out, apparently. One for Super League, which is worth billions of pounds, and one for pretty much everything that's owned by the Rugby Football League, which includes the Challenge Cup and the Internationals and the Championship and League One, and I assume the Women's Super League, but no one knows where that quite fits, even though it's got the Super League name. It belongs to the RFL. Well, whatever. Anyway. The Super League deal seems it seems obvious where that will end up, doesn't it? Because BT have shown no interest in rugby league to date, have they? Or are we all pinning our hopes on people on the internet saying, oh, well, Channel 4 lives in Leeds now, and Amazon have just bought International Rugby Union. So I was very disappointed. I watched 2 episodes of Steph's Packed Lunch, and there's been no mentions of rugby league. So those campaigns from people on Twitter have completely failed. And her studio's in the middle of Leeds. I don't know. I'm on the high horse again.
I'd be stunned if Super League was on anything other than Sky Sports beyond 2021, personally. But I guess we've got to go through the pretense that other people are interested.
I mean, you mentioned that Rugby Union's on Amazon Prime and a couple of live games on Channel 4, and the highlights of some of the cricket has been on the BBC. And do you know what amounts have been paid for any of this?
Well, the interesting thing with those cricket games on the BBC, and they made a big song and dance about it. And don't get me wrong, this is not an anti-BBC thing, as people are taking us. They made a big song and dance about having these games. They had 2. It's not as if they had a full series or anything. They had 2 matches.
But have they paid for, and has the amount that they have paid for, has Amazon Prime laid out what Rugby Union would call a significant amount of money, or are they the only people that are picking stuff up at the moment because it's so cheap? I think that Paul's 100% right that, our broadcast option for Super League will be to maintain our relationship with Sky. My only worry, reading some of the things that Sky are going through at the moment, is that if I was on their negotiating team and I knew I was virtually the only party in bidding, I'm not sure I'd be going for a hugely inflated amount, if at all. So I think, it's very difficult to negotiate with only one party. As for greater exposure for other competitions on things like Channel 4 or Channel 5, bite-sized pieces of the NFL that we see go around, you've got to accept, I think, that you're not going to get any money for that. That you have to make a decision at some point that can you trade on the back of the exposure it gives you rather than the actual rights money that's going to come in for it. And Jonathan Liu, who we know follows and watches and is a fan of Rugby League, he goes to the major events, and I think he's a genuinely sympathetic fan of the sport whenever you get the chance to speak to him a game. He's just written a piece really interesting in The Guardian today about what does television rights even mean anymore, because if it is just highlights packages, because we as a sporting audience no longer have the desire or capacity to sit there for the full length of a game and watch it, and what is selling sports and becoming the rights to be bought are the highlights packages, then A, there's not as much money on those, but B, we need to do something about the ones that we produce, because we've got some brilliant acrobatic stuff that we can sell. We've got some Squrriel grips that we can sell. We've got some other stuff that we can sell. But at the moment, we're geared up to, here's an 80-minute game. What would you like to do with it? And I think we're going to have to be cuter than that.
It almost, I'm trying to think of the right way of putting this. But when we talk about people, and we'll get back to the actual deals in a moment, you bring up, making stars of the people who are acrobatic and the big hits and this and that and the other. Unfortunately, the most famous person involved in rugby league at the moment is Rob Burrow. He's the one with the highest media profile, and we need to make our players stars, and we don't seem to do that. I remember being in a meeting in a discussion last year, and I'm not going to mention the name of the player who was brought up, but it was a case of someone mentioned that, the next person we should make into a celebrity or whatever was another person who'd gone through hardship in his life, and it gives no value to the game whatsoever, because we need to make stars of Regan Grace, of Tom Johnson, of Tommy Makinson, and Makinson, grabbed someone's nuts the other week. It doesn't matter, because it's part of his story. Then we can still say he's a great player. He's just done something daft. But no one knows who he is. He won the Golden Boot. No one knew who he was, because a national radio station couldn't get an interview with him. He was too busy, according to people. We don't help ourselves.
No. Well, we've been saying this for years, though, that we need to make stars. And I guess you listen, to be fair, to the Super League team of Robert Elston and their nice new Manchester HQ, which I don't even know if they're even there anymore because of COVID.
Cobwebs on the doors.
All their plans are just up in smoke, aren't they? They're limited in what they can do. I mean, they had a nice shiny TV show that had to be canned, and so I don't want to be too harsh on them because it's been difficult for everybody to get our business done in this in this climate and these circumstances. So I have to. I mean, I'm one of the people who've been given a bit of leeway to Toronto, so I have to give the same sort of leeway to Super League. We don't know what exactly they had planned to address that issue, which has clearly been an issue for a long time, as you say, Richard. So yeah, that's something that we need to address for when we come out of lockdown, that we've got a plan to make these people stars. I don't know how we do that. I like the idea of highlight. If we can get a highlights package on a broadcaster, a terrestrial broadcaster that isn't at stupid o'clock on Monday evening, is only available in like Lee, then we might stand a chance of that. So maybe Channel 4 will be interested. They've had success with highlights programs of random minority sports in the past. I mean, you remember the glory days of Kabaddi, Richard, I'm sure.
I mean, it's not even on Sky now. They've dropped the Kabaddi. That's how bad things are.
I think there's two things there on what you just mentioned about how highlights packages can sell sport. As far as I can remember, that's what broke the NFL here in the manner in which it is now. That clearly people supported it beforehand and knew about it, but when it started getting mass audiences was in the mid to late 80s, when Channel 4 did an hour's highlight package on a Monday to a rock music background, and people like me who'd heard of it but never had come across it or seen it in all its glory watched some team called the Redskins with some bloke called Theismann and some guy catching called Rice, and some team with a Lawrence Taylor and like the fact that I even know these names was purely based on a highlights package, and I didn't have a team that I could buy into. I didn't need to. I could just sit down for an hour on, I think it was a Monday evening when it started, and was it Sweet Dreams Are Made of This was the soundtrack that was on mainly at the back of the action, and suddenly became imbued with the fact that, sure, if a purist was watching, you'd be going, yeah, but what about the tackle and the interception and the linebacker and the zone defense? You're going, I don't care, I've just seen a brilliant touchdown. And that on the back of that, they built the sport to the point where here we are, 25 years later, where games are coming into this country and selling out. So I think there is some merit in clearly looking at that as a strategy. The other thing that I found really odd is it's not just administrators have got to decide what we mean by stars and how we promote them. I was amazed at the amount of social media traffic that was criticising the return of Sonny Bill Williams. When he made his debut for the Roosters, he was only on for 15 minutes. What people didn't say was it did happen to be the 15 minutes that turned the game while he was on there. He galvanised his teammates, and his contribution may well have been 27 tackles on 5 metres or whatever it might have been, but actually him being on the field was the period when the Roosters won what was a game that was in the balance. But the fact that they were going back to the dressing room to see him tie his bootlaces while another game was on, they were seeing him combing his hair before he came out, they were seeing him stand up and sit down on the sideline when the game, he's a star. They were promoting a name that, if you were talking about rugby in its widest sense, how many people have heard of globally, he is one of them. He is in our sport. The Australian broadcasters focused almost obsessively on him about to make his debut again. That's how you sell a star. And too many of us said, oh, well, it's over the top. No, it isn't. That's how you market somebody.
I would like us to maybe you talked about the NFL on Channel 4 there, Phil. Gazzetta Football Italia. That was the big one for me when I was growing up.
Do you want to present highlights from a cafe
I was thinking
with an ice cream or something?
Yeah, well, I was thinking, obviously you always used to have James Richardson, outside a nice plaza in Milan with a copy of Gazzetta. So maybe, you could have Gary Schofield outside, I don't know.
Not Toronto.
Outside Huddersfield, Nando's, with a copy of League Express or League Weekly or 4020 magazine, which is out this week, and talking about rugby league. I think it's a winner. I mean, it's a proven formula.
We've got proven formulas. Rugby League Raw won awards because the accessibility of our players, our coaches, everything we would do would benefit a broadcaster, and we would get some footage that other sports wouldn't allow you to get. We've proved that in the past. Let's do that again.
Because it's not happened, I can say we were going to do a thing like that with the Wakefield women this season because we got that access. But obviously, we're not being able to do that now because of the COVIDs. But
are you both drinking glasses of orange, or are you passing them between you? Because it's weird.
I don't see when this program goes out. I don't know where Paul will be on screen, so I can't act as if I'm.
A bit of editing magic.
My pen falls apart now. Lost my train of thought. What we were saying about highlights. Women's League
behind the scenes with this team.
Danica on the Super League show. She'll never be on this program again now. Now she's been on proper telly. I think John Keir was jealous of her coat and the shoes. So we've got the Super League show. That's on the BBC. It's a good program. It is what it is. I think Inside Super League was going in the right direction to be something different, which was attested to by the fact that Rugby League people didn't like it because it wasn't, here's the highlights. It was a different kind of magazine show. I think that's the kind of thing we'll never know now. But it could have been something we'd have sold to somebody else other than our host broadcaster, Sky. But we never got the chance to see what would have happened there. But you're right, Phil, and a lot of sports bodies do this. They make syndicated programs to give away for free. World Rugby do it, the cricket do it. I don't know if I'm sure the Premier League football program, which goes out around the world, I'm sure some places pay for it and some places will get it for free or whatever.
China.
Yeah. That was a kind of program that would have been our version of that. As I said last week, I don't know why the NRL don't try and get their highlights on ITV4 or whatever, which has a history of showing things like the Tour de France or the German football highlights randomly. There are opportunities for us, and the one key here that I haven't mentioned yet, and yes, the big one is money. The other is visibility, and that's why it's important that the Challenge Cup and the internationals are on the BBC, and the World Cup's on there next year. It's okay saying, oh well, if we give it to Premier Sports and give us 2 hours a week or whatever, but no one's watching, and no one's going to flick up that high. So you have to have it on a channel people will watch, because the more people flick through, the less chance they'll get of getting to channel 600, because they've already found something on channel 133. So if we do sell our highlights package to someone else, it has to make sure it's on a channel people watch. Do people watch the Football League highlights on Quest? I don't know.
I think they do. I think they do if that's the place they know it is. But you only get a reputation by the quality of your programming. And I think because they've got the right presenter and they've got a format whereby it's more than just the goal highlights, then yeah, I think it does have a cult following, and that's what we've got. You mentioned the World Cup, and the one saving grace at the moment, I think, is everything that the World Cup are doing. And I know that John Dutton has mentioned that there clearly is a contingency that if it has to go back a year, it will. But next Monday, the first tickets go on sale. I think we've now seen the online shop open yesterday. That they are planning everything for it going ahead at the time scheduled in 2021. But the way they're going about doing it is the model for how we move forward as a sport, I think. And if they can get those kind of highlights programs and access behind the scenes programs, I think they're innovative enough to not only do that, but set a template for the rest of the sport to be able to do that.
I've said this before, and I have to say it again, and I wish people wouldn't, in our industry, sell the general public dreams that are just impossible. The last time Championship Rugby League was on telly was on Premier Sport, and before that it was on Sky for a couple of years. But there's been no interest from any other broadcaster to show it regularly. It's okay, people saying, oh, well, if this package of the internationals and the Challenge Cup and everything goes to the BBC, they'll be sticking Lee versus Swinton on. They won't, because they can do what Sky do and not show it. League One's not on anywhere. I know that there's an article in the paper about how League One's stronger than ever, but it doesn't matter. because third division sport of any kind isn't on TV apart from football. And people need to realise that we can do more with it and try and do stuff on our league or whatever. And we, when we were at Radio Yorkshire, inquired about doing a highlights programme for the Championship where we'd take the footage from the clubs, we'd package it all together, stick it out online, and we were told we couldn't because somebody else had the rights to do it, and obviously it was never done. We have to do something ourselves to be proactive to try and create a buzz around the Championship or League One, and it might be impossible. It might be. But I saw Sir Rodney Walker on the telly yesterday moaning about basketball getting no coverage, so what more can people wondering why the show wasn't on yesterday? I saw Sir Rodney Walker on the TV and fainted.
I'd have been moaning about Sir Rodney Walker being on the telly, to be honest.
I didn't realise he got his fingers in the basketball pie now. No wonder it's the dog's not happy either.
With
as soon as you mentioned Sir Rodney Walker, the people of Wakefield are up in arms.
I have to say your dog's not called Sir Rodney Walker, is it? It's just answering.
No, Sky. Ironically, off Sky.
Well, that'll be it. With regards to Championship and League One, I think you're right. I think personally, I would like the Challenge Cup rights to be sold separate to that, so that whoever you've sold the Challenge Cup to, you haven't given them away this product, which they'll probably, like you say, just discard. I would have thought there's something interesting you can do with Championship and League One, not just about Rugby League in a highlights format, but about the communities that those teams are in. And I would have thought that in the post-Brexit world and the working-to man world, and perhaps some introspection and looking at some communities that have been ignored for quite a long time, I would have thought that there's an interesting sort of social political element as well on top of the sport that somebody, a creative broadcaster, the likes of Channel 4, for instance, could do. That if you, even to the point where you say to them, listen, you can have the highlight rights, we'll give you them for free. We'll also give you this access if you come and film our players and around the towns, the fans, speak to the fans. I think that would make an interesting programme, not just to us, but to people outside. I don't know, maybe I'm kidding myself on that, but I would have thought that would be interesting. It's like all these communities, many of them who voted for Brexit, and this is life in those places, and it's also giving you the sport that means so much to those communities. Again, I've just made that idea up on the spot, but you can have it for free, RFL, if you're listening.
Make it a soap opera.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you see so many formats like that are just in general life, but I think if you added a sporting element, it could work, I think.
I agree.
What do I know?
Well, don't forget, once in 1965, ABC Weekend Television showed an amateur game which involved, was it Roger Millward or something? And everyone says, oh, well, that's great, we can show amateur rugby league on TV because it happened.
Was that the same year that Dinah Rigg was on the telly?
It might have been, mighty. That was a great set of photos that was found by Tony and Sky Sports. Those were brilliant. And Leeds lost. What's going on there?
I'm assuming she was a loiner because she was in the South Stand there.
Yeah. But and she's from Doncaster, so glory hunter. And
went to school in Pudsey, which of course is just down the road from Headingley.
Oh, there you go then. I didn't realise she was a rugby league fan, but you learn all these things too late. Could have got her to do some promotion for us, but never mind. What else is on my bit of paper I've written here? Oh, Toronto. Oh. And this is to hit Paul where it hurts, so to speak. The fit and proper persons test, which obviously Wigan Athletic are big fans of at the minute. Oh yeah, we'll take over your club. Oh, actually, yeah. Shouldn't we now be saying, as a sport, David Argyle, you're banned now. You can have no further involvement in this sport because you didn't pay your players or anyone, and now we're in this mess.
Yeah.
I don't. Yes. I'm just throwing it out. I don't know.
I don't expect that he's going to try and come back, though, is he? I don't know, but yeah, perhaps if he does come back with another club idea and saying, "Oh, I can do this, and this," we're well within our rights to say, "Well, no, you can't, can you?" He's proven that he's not up to the job. Yes, Richard, you can, but I don't think it's necessary.
No, I think there are two things to say about the investment in Toronto. The first one is that it would appear that the new owner and whoever his consortium is wealthy enough to take this on. That even the very smallest amount of due diligence, looking at his business record and the companies that he owns and has set up and the volumes of money that they have made over a significant period of time, I think the word we could use is minted, particularly in a rugby league sense. So in terms of, does he pass the ability to put resource into the sport? Yes, he does. I think the other thing is that in David Argyle's mitigation, not that he needs me to stand in his corner whatsoever, is this could only go ahead because he is prepared to write off his personal debt at the moment. So yes, there is clearly an issue about how he's handled the business in the last few months, that it was in existence, but he's not looking for even a penny in the pound return on the 17 million that he's invested, and to walk away having said, like to be fair, Dr. Kukash did at Salford, that yes may disqualify him in the future, but he's also, let's not be too revisionist about rewriting history and paint him as the Black Knight in all of this. He put money in where nobody else would, and he's not asking for any of it back. So I just don't think there's an economic argument to make about whether they should come back or not. The argument is, what does the sport want, and if it comes back, what ramifications and implications does that have going forward? Because the sport itself has to take 125 years worth of blame of not having a strategy for expansion.
I just want to ban people, just in general. I'm very draconian. So what do we do then? We're going to find out, I think, next week after, when they make the decision. We've got 11 teams in Super League at the moment. We need to have 12 next year. Is it going to be Toronto, Paul? Are we going to let them back in with their tail between their legs and no players as they have at the moment?
Are we? I don't know. Should we? I would say yes. Are we? Yeah, I feel like if we were going to move on from them, we might have drawn the line already. So the fact that it's taken this long, and then the fact that we've allowed a new owner to emerge, suggests to me that we will continue with them. And not least because, what's the solution otherwise if you want a 12-team Super League? So, if you say Toronto aren't in, what do you do then? Do you have a mini licensing, as I think somebody has suggested? Put Lee in. Yeah. Do you just handpick somebody, say, to lose from the championship and put them in? I don't know. I would have thought Toronto's returns your best shot at getting, everybody that's owed money to get that money, which shouldn't be overlooked. Players particularly. Yeah, I think they probably will, but I'm not, sat at home on furlough, decorating a nursery right now. I'm not in contact with club CEOs and chairmen getting the inside track. So I don't know, but I hope so personally.
Neither am I, Paul. I'm sat on furlough as well. I'm watching TV during the day, which is rubbish. And I see all these adverts for charities asking me for money. And I can almost picture now black and white scenes of Lamport Stadium and the words of Josh McCrone and Brian McDermott being played over some sad plinky plonky piano music about how we should I'm playing devil's advocate here, about how we should let Toronto back into Super League. Phil, you're a Leeds Metropolitan elite. You must be thoroughly in favour of having Toronto back in.
I don't think there's an alternative. I think that what they've achieved, irrespective of the final methods they went about not securing their financial partners, would tell you that if this sport can get 10,000 people in an unfamiliar market, that's exactly what it should be aiming to do at the moment. And when you talk about an expansion strategy, that should be at the heart of it. How do we spread the game to new markets? Because if we don't, as we've seen with the effects of COVID, if you're too geographically concentrated, your future is unfortunately limited, and that is fact. It's not trying to make any political point. The other thing that's really important is there is a way out of all of this if the game looks beyond making a decision. I think the Toronto thing's really interesting. If you'd have asked all the clubs the days after they pulled out, they would have said, we don't want them back, they're not welcome. I think there's now been a groundswell of opinion led by Leeds and St Helens to say they actually offer quite a lot, and it would be foolish of us at this moment as a sport to throw that away. We're on the verge of a potential new broadcasting deal, and whilst it may not bring any new dishes within the Toronto area, what it does is it allows you to go out and sell a more global competition. And in the world that we live in at the moment, you can go to potential sponsors and or commercial advertisers on a television company and say, well, if you've got a global product, we've got the competition for you. So I think all of that needs weighing into it. The other way of perhaps appeasing everybody is I don't think you can have relegation in 2021. I think every single club that is currently in Super League will need next year to breathe and develop and get over what has been the trouble of this year. They're not going to get any season ticket income because it's all going to be rolled over from this year. They're going to get £300,000 less from Sky because of what they're clawing back from matches that couldn't be staged. So I would say that those other 11 clubs who are voting on whether Toronto come back and are seriously stymied in terms of financial income next year, and Toronto perhaps for 1 year as a potential sanction for pulling out of the competition would get the accommodation of the fact that they still wouldn't get any access to the final year of this television deal, because that's what was pre-negotiated, but it would be an implicit understanding that they would get a share of the next television deal. All of those clubs could make the decision on the basis of the fact that they weren't under pressure from Toronto coming back because there was a relegation scenario, but to then be completely fair and upfront with those teams in the Championship who are also going to need a little bit of time to come back onto the playing field from an economic point of view. I would absolutely announce now that Super League is increasing to 14 teams at the end of the 2022 season, so that you're allowing Toronto in, and there's a moratorium on relegation for the final year of the current television deal. Everybody can breathe and get to the World Cup. 2022, everybody starts off knowing that nobody's going to be relegated, but 2 teams are going to be promoted. And I think then you bought yourself enough time and space to factor that into the new television deal, because you're going to have to split it 14 ways instead of 11 as it is at the moment, 12 under normal circumstances. But also you can look going forward then from 40 teams. What does that mean? Do you then bring in more of a mini licensing procedure? But actually then, absolutely, Derek Beaumont will be leaping up and down saying, I'm going to sue the bottom off you if you have another year where there's no promotional relegation. But if you say to Derek, you're building a team that, if you keep going the way you're going, you have another year whereby you will give you a Championship grand final, you could win £250,000. We'll give you the 1895 Cup final or the Joseph Platt final, whatever it might be called by then. You could get to Wembley and win in a prestigious event. But, you get it right on the field by 2022, you're going to be in Super League. I think that sort of is the kind of solution that suits everybody.
I like the idea. I'm just not sure how realistic it is to, at a time when we know the next broadcast deal is going to be in reduced terms, to then persuade the Super League chairman to split that more ways than they currently are. I think it would take a bit of vision, bit of balls to get back to what we were talking about earlier, to do that. And I'm not sure in a post-COVID world where businesses are struggling that they're gonna be on board with that. I'm not sure. I don't really see it as realistic. On the Toronto issue, I think as much as anything as well, you've at least got to think about the image of the sport outside the game. We all know what's gone on with Toronto, but we have 2 choices really at the end of this season. One is that Rugby League has failed again to expand and Toronto has collapsed, and the other is that Rugby League's North Atlantic franchise has managed to survive COVID and he's coming back, and he's now looking forward to the future. And they're two very different stories to be out there to people beyond rugby league. And when you're trying to sell the sport as growing in order to get a better TV deal, then I know which is the better narrative.
And they bought Ottawa, so there's got to be some joined up logical thinking about, if you ditch Toronto at this time, where does that leave Ottawa? I think the other thing we've talked about is highlights packages, and why broadcast partners will be interested in showing the best that Super League can be. I think to the non-aficionado viewer, the person who comes across the sport on a casual basis, if there is a team in there called Toronto, you actually are going to be more predisposed to say that's just a bit unusual. I might just watch that. They might even become my team. And this Sonny Bill guy who I've heard of, he is actually going to play in Canada. He may not. I don't know. I mean, he's a shareholder of the team, and it might be in his interest to end his career out there and keep them financially up and running. But if you are serious going to sell your sport to different partners in a different format, you need to offer them something different. And the only thing we've got that is different is Toronto.
And this is where I have to keep. It's like drip, drip, drip with me, and the things I keep saying. Eventually, hope they get through to people. When people say now about the broadcast deal, well, what are Toronto going to bring in terms of money from North America? No, don't think now. Don't think next year. Think down the line. Because I keep using the comparison of the CFL, and there's another sport that's had to cancel their season, the Canadian Football League. If we put a team in Leeds, would broadcasters be paying money to show their games? No, because no one knows what the Canadian football is in this country. Much like in Toronto, people don't know what rugby league is, or didn't know what rugby league is. I do wonder, Paul, if they are, and they've made mistakes. I'm not excusing them of their mistakes, but if, in a sense, and I guess this is what Squrriel mentions in his column in the paper, they are being tarred with the brush of failures in the past, of Scarborough, of Mansfield, Nottingham, of Kent and Southend or whatever, all clubs who never had a chance of succeeding. Are Toronto being tarred with that brush because we've seen these failures before?
Yeah, and I don't think that's fair. Scott. Yeah, I read Squrriel's piece comparing them to South Wales and Mansfield marksmen. I mean, listen, I don't remember Mansfield marksmen. I'm a bit younger than Gary.
And me. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to skirt that issue. Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Did they ever get 10,000 on a regular basis?
They were never going to.
No. And yet Toronto are getting healthy crowns on a regular basis already. Also, Mansfield, Scarborough, they're not big sporting areas in any sport, let alone rugby league. Toronto is an established, massive sport market. So you can't compare the two. Similar in North Wales Crusaders, Wrexham, or Bridgend as they started out as. They're not comparable markets. So, yeah, I think you're probably right. Yeah, we've been burnt by expansion many times. And understandably, people see the same thing happening and think that, yeah, it's exactly the same and it's just as futile. And then I'm not sure that it is. The initial reaction from the people of Toronto to turn out and show an interest suggests that it isn't.
Up the Pirates. As they say.
There's also an international spin-off as well. That if we take the broader view, that the one thing that is going to elevate this sport to the levels that will make it, at worst, a big minority sport, it's having a more visible international element, and we're going to see that with the World Cup. Well, if you're ever going to take a World Cup to North America, if you're ever going to improve the fortunes of an American national team, and let's face it, that is where there is some money. So you say that any American teams in a world championship, but in an American accent, clearly, they would they jump at it, if they could be world champions of anything. But that's only going to happen if you start putting clubs in their neighbourhood. And on the back of that is a development policy, which takes a huge amount of time.
There are some good points made by Squrriel in his column, by the way. It's just that everyone picks up on the headline-grabbing comparison with Scarborough. I was talking on Twitter earlier to Toronto zealot Sandy, who was a bit upset about that. But I like Scarborough. I feel like this is Scully's Bondi or Bondi or Blackpool moment.
Listen, Scarborough's got plenty going on. It doesn't need rugby league. It's already a world-class destination.
The home of the Stadium of Chips, or it was, and that's now half of it. It's in Featherstone, of course. I think that's all the news, because we'll get on to another bit of news when we talk about the games, I think, unless there's anything I've forgotten. And the big bit of news from the week is top Forty20 TV viewer and Huddersfield Giants coach Simon Woolford will soon be top Forty20 TV viewer and not coach of Huddersfield Giants, Simon Woolford, because he's off at the end of the season, in news which, well, has been rumoured for a while now. They lost again by a point to Leeds. Bloody Leeds again. They do this all the time, having led 10-0. Are we surprised at the news? Well, not surprised because we knew it was going to happen, but the theory behind it, I guess.
I guess I'm a little confused as to what the theory is. Like I say, my finger's not exactly on the pulse right now. So I know that Simon Woolford's been linked with a job in Australia to Penrith. How much of that plays a part? How much is it about Huddersfield being unhappy with results and performance? How much is it about Huddersfield wanting not to pay as much money as a coach? Is that play a part? I don't know from Huddersfield's perspective. I'm surprised from the pure sporting point of view of he is building a team. He brought in a new playmaker for this season. There was some progress, I thought, prior to lockdown. These are difficult circumstances, as we mentioned earlier. You have to be a little bit forgiving for some of the results. I think they've had terrible injuries as well, to key players that have meant that they've had to put, inexperienced players, at least at this level, in key positions. So if it's a completely sporting decision of, it's time for another reset to get someone else in, then yeah, I am a bit surprised. If it's the other reasons, if it's part financial, if it's part ambition on Simon's part, I can sort of understand the mix. But yeah, I'm a little surprised. Though obviously, like you say, we all knew. So
I think doesn't it go back as well to why would they get rid of Paul Anderson? I mean, it's 6-7 years ago that they were won the League Leaders Shield. They were perennials in fighting for the playoffs at the right end of the table. They got to a couple of cup finals at Wembley. They'd started a process of young players coming through and then seemed to reverse that and want to buy expensive overseas players that perhaps they didn't get a return on. I'm not sure Huddersfield as a club know what they want to be or how they want to go about being what they want to be. I find it odd that there's no continuity around the place. Andy Kelly's clearly doing a great job with bringing the next generation of kids through. And I think, you look at any team that has brought through a group of young kids together, there is a period of time where they have to lose together before they win together. They have to learn together. They have to experience things together. They have to have a coach that believes in them. And I think the amount of youngsters that Simon has given an opportunity to over a period of time so that he can have a look at the ones that he thinks can do a job for him, the style that every coach that comes in wants to play. If you're always upsetting that every couple of years, I don't know where your philosophy is as a club. Clearly, Simon, when he first came over here, didn't have his family with him. That must be really difficult as an individual to come and work halfway around the world and not have access to your nearest and dearest. Clearly, he won't have come cheap. But I think he said, which was quite telling, he saw this as a 3 or 4 year job. And he needed to go through a process with the job. And he's being dispensed with after 2. Now, that might well be partly his decision. It might well be partly Huddersfield's decision. But who are Huddersfield going to get that isn't have to start again? And I don't know what they're trying to achieve. He seemed to me like a good fit at that club. And they seem to be moving forward. But I think this takes them back a couple of steps.
Maybe they'll get Paul Anderson back. Maybe Huddersfield are the new West Ham. They'll just keep
And they're doing well.
employing David Moyes. Yeah, maybe they'll do that with Blue. I don't know.
Scully's West Ham. No.
I thought you could say Scoey's going back there then. As
Well,
coach.
he could do, couldn't he?
He knows Ken.
Yeah.
I know Ken.
I'm trying to see if any bookies have got prices on who's the next Huddersfield coach, because that's always worth losing money on. He's betting on next managers and next coaches. I don't know who's available. They're going to look at someone for the Championship.
Well, yeah, are we thinking the obvious, assistant coaches in the NRL, or is this the time, global pandemic and all, and making cutbacks to give a chance to a younger British coach?
I tweeted that. I was accused of clickbait by asking that question. Which NRL assistant coach will it be? Well, I thought that was a fair question. Well,
James Ford has been linked with the job, but again, I think the club, whoever they are, be it Huddersfield or if we were talking about any club at the moment, they need to know what the land's going to look like over the next couple of years. Because are you going to be fighting against potential relegation? Are you going to have less money to spend overall, which means you're going to have to rely more and more on your youth and academy squad? Till you know what the roadmap of the sport looks like, it's very hard to bring a coach in, either from abroad or at home. It's very hard to give a young coach a chance if they're going to be under enormous pressure to get their message across very quickly, because there's a massive financial incentive to stay in the Super League. If that is what you're going to have to do, then you might have to go for somebody who's got an established track record. You're Sam Allardyce of Rugby League. But does that help the club? Do you ever move forward if you're just treading water? I don't know.
Who is the Sam Allardyce?
I was just going to say that.
Who always keeps getting jobs? Who are those coaches?
I'm not sure there is a direct comparison. Rugby League, often you lose your job and you're sort of out of it for a long time, aren't you now?
Kieran Cunningham, where's he now?
You're done, yeah. That wouldn't happen in football.
No, statue with some headphones on. That's it. But Leeds won 13-12. Luke Gale dropped goal. To have that performance with all those players out missing, as we say at this point, it was quite a good performance from Leeds, Paul, to come back from 10-0 down. Showed some intestinal fortitude.
Yeah, I thought they did really well. I mean, Richard Agar was a bit down on the performance in his post-match interview, certainly the first half, which, fair enough. But I thought in the circumstances, it was understandable. Second half, I thought they were good. They fully deserved the win. Obviously, the conditions weren't great, were they? Maybe played into the sort of old school Leeds, wasn't it? The old Rainmasters. But they handled that better, kicked better second half. And then, they've got the clutch players, haven't they? Luke Gale pops up with a drop goal, as he's done on many occasions. And that makes the difference. Yeah, I felt sorry for Huddersfield again, though. Was it three times now, isn't it, since the lockdown, to lose by 1 point? And I did wonder if is it a mentality thing with them, or have they just been unlucky? I'm not quite sure. But Leeds, from on the flip side, their mentality to win the close game was proven twice now against Huddersfield.
I know you've mentioned it, Rainmasters. I'm going to channel the energy of Scully. I've not mentioned him enough today. Leeds are going to do the double because they are the Rainmasters. They are the fourth in the table. So they can win Super League from there. They're in the Challenge Cup quarterfinals at the weekend. They're going to win everything. Leeds are going to win everything. Glory.
Second half was laudable, built on the back of a couple of really impressive performances. One from Mikolaj Aledski, who's going under the radar a little bit, but we're all quite rightly talking about Alex Walmsley being the best prop in the world at the moment. But for a young kid who's learning his trade, he's making a big contribution, 50 odd tackles again and a lot of meters. But I think it's his second stint. When he comes back, he's equally as effective as his first, and that hasn't always been the case. It isn't with young players. I think James Donaldson was the other that he made a break right at the start of the second half, and it seemed to pick up the whole team. When you think again, 6 weeks ago he'd been diagnosed with a broken back. These guys are absolutely phenomenal at playing every single team. Aidan Caesar had a great first half and faded in the second. Might be again because he's been injured. But I think what upset Simon departing Woolford more than anything was the fact that, having established a strong lead and the conditions being as they were, that his team couldn't hold on to it. And I think you're right. That is perhaps we can feel this starting to slip away from us. We haven't got our key guys in key positions directing us around the field to greatest effect, and we've let another one go. And psychologically, I think that probably is quite an important defeat for Huddersfield.
Also losing late, Castleford Tigers 6-all at half time against champion select Warrington, of course, and a very late try from a returning Matty Ashton, and Warrington take the 2 points there. I guess we'll talk more about Cas when we talk about the game against Hull FC in a moment, but again, Warrington just got the job done.
Yeah, really impressive. Backs against the wall sort of effort, wasn't it? Smash and grab. Just to be, they didn't lead in the game, did they, until the last minute? I was so impressed by the goal line defense again. Just the intensity in the defense and their effort and the desperation, which Steve Price will be delighted about because that's his number one thing. I was incredibly impressed that they managed to hang in for that long and then to win it at the end. I mean, what a try to win as well from Matty Ashton. It was brilliant. Deck Patton as well, I think needs to get big credit for that. Not always delivered on the big occasions, but I thought he was that play was superb. Warrington, in the circumstances, missing so many players to get a win over one of your potential top four rivals. Big result for them, locks them in for the top four. Surely they've got players to come back. Things are all looking pretty rosy for them, and no Daryl Clark either. You've got to praise Danny Walker's 80 minutes he played. Which he hasn't done before, I don't think, in Warrington colours at least, and was really, really good. A happy days for Warrington. It's their year.
It is their year. Good to see the Daily Mail didn't live up to stereotype with their article on Luther Burrell, by the way, but never mind.
I think we saw a glimpse of Warrington's future as well with Stefan Ratchford at loose forward. Physically clearly up to the job, 40-odd tackles, gives that ability for Ashton to link in from the back with the pace that he's got that not many have, particularly that play at full-back. So that's an added dimension to their attack. They look a really balanced team, and the spine of it looks fantastic at the moment. And if they do win anything this year, it will be on the back of their defence. They're not the most flamboyant of teams, but gosh, they know how to keep in a game. And I think that's what upset Daryl Powell, that when they had the periods of dominance, Castleford couldn't score enough points to make that pay. And it was one switch off late in defence that cost them. And that must be incredibly frustrating. I think we'll also probably need to talk about Danny Richardson in context of the whole cup game as well. Clearly an unbelievably talented young player, but at the moment, to me, just seems to be trying too hard. And when you mention clutch moments, his kicking game a couple of times has really let Castleford down. Either giving away a repeat set with a kick over the back, or putting up something that isn't challenging enough. And it's making that decision at that time in a game that it can be the difference between coming out on the right or the wrong side of the ledger, which is not to clearly blame it all on him, but he's learning in a new environment, and they just haven't quite got that balance right yet.
It's probably a symptom of Jake Truman not being there as well. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on him to deliver in the half-back position right now, isn't there?
But there was a lot of pressure on both of them, because that was a choice of Cass to go with two young half-backs, and that is going to take time to develop. So again, to be expecting them to be a top of the table side, and in the two key positions have two guys who have got to learn to work with each other as well as get experience around what's expected of their role, is a difficult ask.
So a weekend of close games by and large. Hull edging out Wakefield 26-23. Wakefield leaving it a bit too late to get back into that one, but Klepi Tangano with a couple of late tries. He's been impressive since he came to the club, and was unlucky not to get into that top four on the Our League Man of the Match votes.
Just a bit, yeah. I think he was great. I really like him as a player. I think he's fantastic. It's great value to watch. I thought he had a brilliant game.
Did Squrriel get the Man of the Match award just because he broke his nose and wore some tape? I thought he was good. I'm not saying he was terrible. Or remember that time? What's he called? The French fella. He's at Toronto now. Was at Hull. Maloudi.
Hakim.
Yeah, remember when he won the All League vote because everyone just voted for him even though he'd had a shocker? That was a great.
I love Hakim Maloudi. He's brilliant. He's properly entertaining. Not always for the right reasons, but he's one of my faves.
Sonny Bill's best mate when he was at Toronto. But Hull, important win for them.
Some of their young players are really relishing the extra game time that they're getting at the moment. And I thought, the likes of Jordan Lane, clearly not just for his try scoring exploits, but looks like he's turning into a really good, versatile Super League forward. That clearly, again, hooker wise, they are, I think, easing Danny Hount out of that role for the full 80 minutes, and that seems to be working for them. Their issue still is halfback. And Kelly's now going to be missing. Sneed's missing. If ever a time is for Jake Connor to stand up and take on the responsibility of leading a team around with nobody to detract from, it's your team, you do it. It's now. My worry for Hull at the moment is Jamie Shaw. He just seems to be getting so many head knocks. I have a real concern in terms of player welfare that, and I'm sure they will be doing absolutely everything they can to look after him and make sure he goes through all the protocols. But at the moment, he's a little bit like Lance Hire towards what became the end of his career. That he's looking a bit susceptible at the moment, and I wish him nothing but well, because clearly he's another talented guy with the city at his heart.
A really good first half, didn't he, as well, in the cup game before he went off. And presumably he can't play against Wigan now, presumably.
Wouldn't have thought so, no.
My favourite criticism of any team must be that of Hull Kingston Rovers at the weekend, when people were saying they play too much rugby. They're trying to play too much rugby. I mean, I don't know the clues in the name of the sport, but at least with no relegation, as we keep saying, they're going out there. I'm not channeling the energy of Squrriel because he's not here. Vision and awareness, playing what they see in front of them, and all those kind of things. If only they score a try from a chip chase against Leeds, we'll all be on our feet applauding at the weekend. But they nearly knocked off the champion St Helens. It took Golden Point extra time. Another try for Alex Walmsley, who I was amused that the bookies had a shorter price to score than Ethan Ryan, who scored a couple of weeks before. Well, they both did score in the end. We don't need to talk about St Helens because we need to keep praising Hull Kingston Rovers, because they're everyone's favourite second team apart from people from Hull.
Yeah, I thought they were great. Unfairly robbed of a point, by Golden Point, which I continue to dislike.
Wouldn't have mattered under a wins percentage, though.
Yeah, no.
What if it's a draw then after 10? Do they keep
half a win? I don't know. Who knows? I thought they were excellent. They were great value in terms of entertainment. And the accusation they play too much rugby, I don't think so. They almost beat the best team in the league playing that. They drew with them over 80 minutes. In Golden Point, I think they lack composure, and I think Tony Smith said this afterwards. The game management there was poor. That's where, especially as they had an extra man, that's where I would have liked to see them take it a little bit calmer, play for a bit of territory, put some good kicks in, and then hope for a mistake or hope for a bit of momentum to get them in drop goal range. They didn't do that. I mean, Jordan Abdul had another really good game. I think I'm right in saying he got the ball sort of in broken play on a fifth tackle and did have the opportunity to get a kick away, but then didn't take that, and then instead tried to make something happen. And I just would have liked them to be a little bit more boring in Golden Point, especially with an extra man. But generally, the review of that game is that they were excellent against the top of the league for the second week running, and could have easily have won. I thought it was a great game. Really, really great, entertaining game.
Fantastic speed. about the game, belied the fact that nothing matters this year because there's no relegation. I think we had in the 4 games on Friday and Thursday, I think there was a total of 7 points, the margin. So clearly it does matter. I thought it was interesting that Tony Smith was critical of his team's defence. So we're all focusing on how brilliant they are on attack and moving the ball, but he was saying they just needed to be a bit steadier in defence and hadn't been as good doing that as they were against Wigan the week before. Which, as a coach, clearly that means a lot to him. I think there's one real unsung hero in that whole KR team at the moment. I think Dean Hadley's playing as good a rugby as I've seen him play throughout his career. He is such a positive influence on that team at the moment, and his partnership with Abdul over the last couple of weeks has been superb. They seem to be reading each other really well. Mikey Lewis, brilliant. Everyone's been talking him up, and again, maybe because we don't have relegation this year, Tony Smith's more prepared to give him a chance. If you need the 2 points, you've got to play a certain way to get it. Or you can give a guy an opportunity to express himself and say, you've got to learn from the experience. And, I wouldn't put you in if you weren't ready, but you're going to experience some things that I can't coach you until you're actually out there, like what do you do in golden point extra time. Great. I think you're right. Not only are they everybody's second favourite team, but there's a change coming in Rugby League. I think that more people now who are coming to terms with what the new rules mean will be using Hull KR and St Helens as their benchmark. And it is going to be more about promoting the ball rather than safety first. And that can only be a good thing. And good luck to them, clearly, apart from this week, obviously.
I know, Ray, Willie Porting's coming home, so that's the other main headline from Rugby League this week. Challenge Cup on Sunday. Both teams knackered because they played on Thursday, but they gave it as an entertaining game.
You've missed the league game first before the Challenge Cup.
Well, you know why? Because A, they're not in order in the paper, are they? They're in alphabetical order, that's why. And I was trying to do them. I know we didn't go chronological, but trying to do it. And B,
there ain't a lot to say, is it?
No, because A, I fell asleep when the game was on, and B, or C, I can't remember where I am now. We were, Phil, you criticised on social media, as was I on YouTube, for daring to think that Catalans would win. And obviously they were rubbish and Wigan were great. And Wigan won, so we were wrong again. That's why we got Paul on, because he's obviously pro-Wigan, to tell us how bad we are at these predictions. And we'll prove it further in a moment. But
it was horrendous disrespect to predict that somebody might lose a game of Rugby League.
18-0 at half time, and the allay turned to whatever the French is for boo. Not good news for the Dragons in that one, but great performance from Wigan, who are level on percentage with Wigan, with Warrington. And so you must be happy with the way things are going for Wigan at the moment, Paul.
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know why you say that. I'm not a Wigan fan. I'm from Wigan, but speaking as the person from Wigan then on the show, I think Wigan fans can be very happy. Yeah, with it was a very good response to the previous week against Hull KR when they just weren't at it. They were really good, and again, like Warrington, a win that was built on defending your goal line and taking great pride in your defence. But unlike Warrington, obviously far more convincing. I mean, to go 18-0 up, they had the strike to be able to do that. James Maloney kept plugging away for Catalans, but Wigan had the answers for them. I think it was really impressive. Like proper in football terms, it's your proper away performance. That I think Adrian Lamb was clearly delighted afterwards. I thought they were a bit lucky with that first try, though. There was a clear forward pass, wasn't there, in the build-up? And that gets me back to my bugbear of why forward passes can't be ruled on by video referees when you see replays over and over clearly showing that there was a forward pass. But other than that, they were good value, weren't they? Well deserving of the win.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant, particularly coming back from the week before when they've been so disappointing. There must have been some slight anxiety about getting on a plane and going to an away ground at the moment because, it's not the norm, is it? All of those routines are unfamiliar, and it's not what you've been used to when you've been flying out to Perpignan. So to do all that, getting up early on the morning and going straight from the airport to the ground and sitting in your bubble and all, 32 degrees as well, which I don't think it's been in Wigan too often recently. Brilliant.
Pretty hot today, mate. It was pretty hot today. It was at least 27 while I was doing my painting.
Did you nearly take your Mac off? I just thought, again, Sam Powell led it. His enthusiasm and work rate, sensational. Solid everywhere throughout the team. There were no weak links. And the Dragons seemed just a tiny bit overawed by the sense of occasion that fans were allowed in. I think there was a huge weight on their shoulders that because they were the first team to play with their fans behind them, that they had to deliver something. And I think before they realised that the opposition were going to be extremely good, they were 16-0 down and never really came back from that. And I think even Steve McNamara would acknowledge that having had 2 weeks of isolation, it's really difficult, for every club at the moment that is suffering not being able to train, to come back and play at that level of intensity that Wigan started off with. And it's a massive win. I think a statement win from Wigan, and they'll look to kick on from that.
You got to feel for Catalans under the new league system, haven't you? I mean, they went top without playing a game, and now they're fifth. All right, easy come, easy go in this new system.
The system will work in that the more that you win, the more chance you've got, like in any other season, of finishing in a playoff position. The problem for Catalan, which is not of their own making, is I genuinely don't know how they're going to catch up on some of the games that have been postponed, because it's not the easiest thing in the world to pick a midweek date and schedule it for them to come and play. So yeah, it's going to be really tough for them. In fact, I think they've got at least one Wednesday night game once the fixtures kick in. So I'm not even sure they've got even every midweek. There'll be some people other than them, clearly administrators, hoping that they get knocked out of the Challenge Cup this weekend, because that'll free up at least one fixture slot, you would have thought.
Speaking of the Challenge Cup, as I did prematurely,
segue there.
Yeah, Hull are through. Carlos Tumavave celebrated his new contract with a pair of tries, and good. What you expected between two teams who played 72 hours before. It was a decent enough game. Got a bit scrappy, but it was what it was. And I guess the big issue coming out of it is more injuries, and we spoke about that with player welfare earlier. But Hull, I think it's fair to say, Paul, worthy winners in the end.
Yeah, definitely. They made 8 changes, didn't they, from the previous game a few days earlier? I thought that really told, because they just seemed fresher to me. Obviously, Tumavave was one of them, and he was the most impressive, not just the 2 tries, but try-saving tackle as well. Good timing for that performance after you just signed a new 4-year contract, just to prove you might be worth it. They were very good. Credit to both teams for backing up. No criticism of Castleford for that dig. Less than 72 hours after you'd played a really intense game against Warrington. But yeah, Hull with the fresher, more energy. They seem to make the right decisions in the big moments, and yeah, worthy winners. But you do wonder now whether it's a bit of a Pyrrhic victory, whether with the injuries that they've had from that game, Albert Kelly and Jamie Shaw particularly, whether they're going to be in any condition whatsoever to benefit from that win and be able to compete with Wigan this weekend. It's tough on them that comes straight after, because I don't know how they're going to be in any sort of state to be really competitive.
I think the actual residual image of this game will be so many of the players absolutely exhausted on the pitch afterwards. Particularly the cast guys, particularly people like Paul McShane, who clearly could barely get his legs to work towards the end of the game. He was that exhausted, and as you say, I'm not sure what more either side could have done. Cass made the decision to virtually play their same squad twice running. Hull made the decision to vary it up a bit, and you'd say that on the balance of play, that was the difference between them. That and an interception try just before half time and another try just after that. I think Cass score from from the interception and you go in at 12-10, 12 all, you actually go in at 18-16 down and you're already exhausted. It becomes a much more of a mountain to climb. And then the try that Hull got from the tap restart, again, I think that just great enterprise, brilliant as a neutral to watch two wingers working together in such harmony. But again, a cast defence that, because of exhaustion, clearly had clocked off for that 1 second when Faraimo ran with the ball. I think they all thought, well, if we drag him down, then we've stopped that. There just wasn't enough awareness that he was going to offload the ball to Niall Largo, and that proved to be the game-breaking try. Couldn't fault anybody that played in that game. It was just effort, endurance, desperation, and because of fatigue, a little less skill as the game went on, and no less exciting for that. I just think Cass ran out of steam, and be very, very. They're going to need the week off, but it's very interesting to see how Daryl Powell gets them back up for the remainder of the season.
I mean, he wasn't happy on Thursday after the game with the fact that they had to go back to St Helens on Sunday. I don't know why it was there. I'm assuming, and I'm probably wrong, that perhaps because, as far as I know, it's the same TV production company who does all the games for everyone. So they may have just left their cameras there all weekend and it's less hassle. I don't know. I'm just speculating. Did the venue really matter, do you think, Paul, of where the game was played? Because it wasn't going to be played at Castle, it wasn't going to be played at Hull. So
no, not really.
There's not many places it can be played.
No, I don't think that comes into play whatsoever. I mean, driving to St Helens is not the hardship in that, is it, really? It's the 80 minutes that you actually play.
Believe me, driving back from St Helens was an absolute nightmare. 4 times diverted off the motorway.
Oh.
I've got to say that even in this COVID-19 world, nothing's changed with the M62. No.
Off the tops through some inhospitable territory in the rain. So I can see why I would have been upset, but that wasn't a reason why they lost.
Anything else to talk about before we get on to the predictions? Because I usually have forgotten something, but I think we've covered everything.
Are we bothering to do predictions? Is it just so that people can say you got it wrong, even though you didn't know who was playing, or
exactly.
Whether they'd have COVID restrictions placed upon them after you've made your selection?
Exactly. Thursday afternoon, 3:00, our league app. Fingers crossed I get a code, otherwise I don't know what I'm going to do. It's Wakefield Trinity versus Huddersfield as Wakefield make their home at the John Smith Stadium. With number 41, Eddie Batty, about to make his debut. It's almost as if Wakefield have turned into a team playing in the Carabao Cup in football with the squad numbers at the minute. Go on, Phil. Tell me how this one's going to go, because I don't know.
Wakefield will win. I think, again, having had a bit of time off to reset themselves, to get a new player in, I think Huddersfield at the moment are just in that horrible place whereby the coach has announced it's been announced that the coach is going back, that confidence again has been knocked by the manner of the defeat this week by a point again. I think if Wakefield can make a fast start, they'll win, but not by many.
Yeah, I'm going to concur and say Wakefield. Well, to be smart, Wakefield by 1. It's Huddersfield, isn't it? So I'll go Wakefield by 1.
The thing is, on next week's programme, we're not going to be able to talk about this game because no one will have seen it. I mean, I don't know why. I mean, I know there's a deal with Sky, but when these games aren't being shown by Sky, I don't know why they can't just be put on for everyone to watch. I know it's for season ticket holders and this and that and the other, but if you're going to the expense of broadcasting a match, however many cameras the R-League app uses, and the people involved, you may as well put it out there to the largest audience possible. I've been watching football on Twitch. I've been streaming on Twitch. I hope people are following us. We've got about 1 follower, I think. Real Mallorca were showing their pre-season friendlies on Twitch and getting good numbers. Now the league season started, they can't show their games for rights reasons. They stuck a camera on the bench for the whole 90 minutes. You could just watch the bench just sat there, milling around as they lost. Wakefield by 2. Eddie Batty to score on debut. Friday.
Good signing.
Yeah, it is a good signing. Friday, Challenge Cup quarter-finals. Catalans versus Salford. 6:00 kickoff in St Helens. You can go first on this one, Paul.
I'm going to go Catalans. Obviously, good recent record in the Challenge Cup. But yeah, I expect them to be warmed up now after that game against Wigan, fired up to sort of put things right there, but also a bit more match fit, match sharp now. After those couple of weeks without playing, that was always going to affect them first up. Yeah, I fancy him. I'm going to go Catalans by 7.
I'm going to go Salford on the basis of the fact that I think Ian Watson is realistic enough to look at the league table as it stands at the moment, and even with the best will in the world, and even perhaps the best percentage in the world, you're not a million miles away from Wembley if you win this week. You can get to the Challenge Cup final winning 2 games. I think having got to Old Trafford last year, to get to Wembley this year would be a measure of consistency at Salford. I think they'll go all out for this. I'm going to go Salford again because they've had I think rests at this time of the season are absolutely massive. So provided they've all been training together and we don't get to hear that 3/4 of them were stood down this week, I'm going to go Salford by 6.
I think Dave would say on the telly that there could be 20,000 at the final. Fingers crossed. If
Oh, I thought you were going to say at Salford. That would be interesting.
I mean, it might end up being at Salford because there might be no one there at all.
Wembley has the capacity for 22,000 because there is a quarter of the stadium would be allowed. The only problem is it's subject to all of these trials going ahead and being successful. So it's there, but it's tantalisingly not there as well at the moment.
So when they play at the AJ Bell Stadium then in October, because we don't have any viewers from France, I don't think Salford by 6, and that's followed also on the telly by Hull Kingston Rovers versus Leeds. Of course, a repeat of that classic final from a few years ago. Classic if you're Tom Briscoe, but not if you're Kieran Dixon. Phil, who's going to win?
I suspect that if Jordan Abdul is banned, as we think he will be, I'm pretty sure that even Hull KR are not going to appeal that because they know that it would, if they can get a downgrade, it isn't going to help him this week. I'm just going to go Leeds. I think there was a measure of disruption last week with not knowing who the team was going to be until an hour before kick-off. They've all trained, I'm told, so far this week. The 3, who were earmarked to play, Pryor, Martin and Mellor will come back in. They've got a couple banned. Dwyer out is probably a bit of a blow for them. But I'm going to go Leeds by a few. But then you would expect that.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking the same now. If Abdul was playing, if somehow he's not been banned by the time you're listening to this, I'm going Hull KR to win because I've been really impressed with them and they're in good form. But without him, I think he's been important to the way that they've played and also, the disruption that would cause with him not being there. I'll go for Leeds by 4.
I'm trying to get on the Rugby League website, but it won't work. I don't know if I've been banned. I'll go with Leeds as well, and I'll take...
Could be a high scorer.
Yeah. Leeds by 8. No, I can't get on the Rugby League website. Kevin Nakama's appeal's been quashed or something, but that's irrelevant for the moment. But it's irrelevant now because on Saturday on BBC One prime time, St Helens versus Warrington. Go on, Paul. Who's going to win this one?
Oh, really, really tough call actually. This, like I said, I've been really impressed by Warrington of late. So there's part of me that has a real feeling about this one that they might be able to overturn Saints. I think I would, from a betting perspective, I'm going to play it safe and say that Saints' 100% post-lockdown record will continue. But either result, neither would surprise me this weekend. I think this could be a really, really good game, really high quality, intense game. I guess we'll see. We don't know the effect of Warrington's missing players recently and whether they're going to be back in the team, and if they are, what condition they're going to be in and how fit they're going to be in and how much they're suffering by the end of this game. I think Saints, they've been playing on a regular basis. They haven't had as much disruption. I'm going to go for them by 8.
I'm really looking forward to this. This is the game of the weekend, the game of the round. I think that not only have Saints been a quality above most other teams, I accept that Hull KR could quite easily have beaten them last week, but they always seem to have something. Saints, a player that was going to do something special in Lachlan Coote. He's playing so well that it's only that Walmsley's so good at the moment that he's barely being mentioned. I think the driving factor for this will be the Challenge Cup final last year. I think if there was one game that Saints felt they clearly were mastered, it was at Wembley. They were never in it. Warrington was so dominant. If you were going to be a St Helens player contemplating your navel in the run-up to this game, this is the opportunity to say we didn't do our best that day, and we need to redress that. I admire everything about what Warrington are doing at the moment, but I just think Saints are the most well-oiled machine, and that in the big games post Wembley, they were massive. Could play tight if you needed to, expansive if you needed to. I'm going Saints by 4, but this is a game you probably won't be able to take your eyes off for the full 80 minutes.
Yeah, it's difficult not to go with Saints, isn't it? As much as Warrington have been impressive and I want to go with them, I've got to go with the champions, and I think it's going to be very tight, but it should be a fantastic battle all across the field. I think that win over Hull KR will do Saints some good. As much as people say you learn more in a defeat, you learn something in a close victory as well. Saints by 1. And we close off the weekend. We switch to BBC 2, much like if you're a crap British tennis player as opposed to Andy Murray is on BBC 1. They played out one of the greatest tennis finals? One of the greatest Challenge Cup finals of all time, and one of the worst. Hull FC versus Wigan.
I just think it's probably a game too far for Hull. They did look very leggy, even though they won convincingly towards the end of the game last week. I think Wigan will come back from France with a huge amount of confidence in the dominance that they showed in all aspects of the game. I think the loss of Albert Kelly is probably going to be too much for Hull to overcome at a time when Mark Sneed's direction isn't there either. Normally when they've done really well in cup ties, it's because of Sneed's kicking game. So I'm going to go Wigan by 10.
Yeah, I agree. I think Hull, like as I alluded to earlier, not going to be in shape to be able to last the full 80 against Wigan here. They're going to be missing key individuals clearly. Albert Kelly, Jamie Scholl, presumably. Wigan, as I say, impressed against Catalans. Seem to have got a bit of their confidence back. For me, yeah, Wigan all day. I'll go 6-4, 6-4, 6-2, Richard.
Full house for Wigan. Setting up that potential Saints-Wigan final, of course, which would be nice. Or likely a Saints-Wigan semi-final. Wigan by 8. Yeah, Wigan by 8.
And Penrith to win the minor premiership this weekend in Australia.
They've won like 73 games in a row now, haven't they?
Yeah, they've been really entertaining.
I see Brisbane lost to Gold Coast Titans. They are crap, aren't they, the Broncos? Bloody hell.
Yeah, the Titans have won 7 now this season, I think. It's 7. They could finish 9th, which would be quite an achievement, wouldn't it? First season for Justin Holbrook.
I'm just looking at the
top 8 is known, but not all the finishing positions, which is what you want with 2 rounds to go.
Obviously, South Sydney haven't got enough Burgesses these days, but
no. Although Tom's doing very well on his own, isn't he? Recently, keeps putting up big numbers week in, week out. Been in good form, which would have been nice going into an Ashes series, but oh well, never mind.
That's the NRL portion of the podcast done now. No, by the balls is full of that. Set of 6, isn't that's full of all that kind of stuff.
Set of 6.
Yeah.
6 to go.
6 to go.
6 again.
All these podcasts sound the same. There's not enough Rugby League podcasts these days, we know that.
Not enough good ones.
No, I've got to give credit to the Brian Bevan podcast boys because they were well on top of the Luther Burrell thing weeks ago. So they know what's going on at Warrington. We don't, but they know. Paul, thank you very much for your time. Enjoy your painting.
Thank you.
as much as you can. Phil, thank you. Magazine out this week.
Yeah, be in the shops Friday, should be with subscribers Thursday. Sort of the usual acerbic nonsense in there from certain columnists, not naming names, but two of them are on this programme. And we're trying to look ahead and develop some reasons why Rugby League can look forward, not least the World Cup, which I think is something that we really need to get behind. The ticket details for the first batch, you've got to log on to their website to be eligible on the back of the magazine. So if you want to buy tickets for a World Cup game, we've got all the details for you.
I was also pleased to see Rugby League was mentioned on Point List a couple of days ago, so that's a part of the column for next month written. So that's extremely good news. Yeah,
we've got a competition as well, where you can win some products that will aid your recovery, and that's in sympathy with clearly the welfare that the players are having to look after themselves with at the moment. So if you want some roll-on or oil that will ease your joints, 4020 is the place for you.
Is this from that Toronto thing? Is this what's Sonny Will Williams has got shares in?
It's the English equivalent.
Oh, well, it must be better because it's English and not some foreign.
It's made in Scarborough.
Made in Scarborough.
No, it isn't. But
is this why your emails keep ending up in my junk folder, Phil? This sort of stuff that you're peddling.
Right, yeah. Cannabis-related product. All board.
So YouTube these days, it's the preserve of failed broadcasters, mainly on the right wing, who can't get on mainstream media these days. But as we've proven, there is space for everyone here on 4020. Sadly, not live.